For other Jehovah's Witnesses, the roles are reversed, and it's a parent who is disfellowshipped, leaving them unable to communicate openly with their children. I had come to see Nash and his fiancée Lisa.
That's how I feel too in front of you.
Nash had been a Jehovah's Witness for 36 years and raised his children in the organization before he was disfellowshipped twice, once in 2015 and again in 2016, both times related to drinking. After leaving the organization, Nash and his ex-wife separated, but she remained a Jehovah's Witness along with their children.
Because your kids are still Jehovah's Witnesses. How has that affected your guys' relationship?
Yeah, it's really difficult. Like, especially since I took a pretty hard stand now against the witnesses and everything involved. And so, like, my oldest daughter had her 10th birthday in December. And so I bought her just a few little gifts, nothing special, but like a nice little necklace and stuff with a saying on it that I used to say to her. And she won't wear it. It's in a box in her room, she said, but she doesn't want to wear it because it was a birthday present. My oldest boy, I don't know. He's a hard one to crack. He's 15 now. And like I haven't really spent any real time with him in over a year. And while we still talk and everything seems fine, you know, we just don't get to ever see each other. And I can tell it's that he has just a lot of pressure on him. I mean, there's a lot of things going on, but he definitely has a lot of pressure on him just to not be around me.
Like, are your kids disappointed in you that you're not Jehovah's Witness? Like, have they said anything to you like that?
Yeah, Eden did, my oldest daughter. We were just at the pool getting ready to go in. And she said to me, "Dad, you made the worst decision of your life." And I said, "What do you mean?" And she says, "You left Jehovah." And I said, "Well, honey, I didn't leave Jehovah. I just said I'm not going to be a Jehovah's Witness anymore." She says, "I think you just made the worst decision of your life." And that was it. That's what she had to say.
How old is she?
She was 9 then.
It's just, it's interesting having his kids over and seeing already, like, so young how dedicated they are to it. When even talking about birthdays, we were talking about birthdays the other day when they were here, and his youngest was just, as soon as we started talking about them, "I don't like birthdays. I don't like cake. I don't like presents."
Like, the way my kids act when other witnesses are around and the way they treat me, like the way that other people treat me, and my kids just feel like that's okay. I went, I think my kids played hockey at the rink with the Jehovah's Witnesses. I met them at Dairy Queen to take them for ice cream after. And I walked in and I had all 4 of my kids with me. And there were some of the witnesses from hockey sitting there. They just played with my boys. And we were behind them. So they were sitting down eating their food. I came in and ordered, and we were getting drinks behind them. And they all sat there. And these are, some of them are my oldest boy's friends, same age. And none of them talked to my kids. None of them said hello. None of them turned around from their seats. And we were this far away. And nobody did anything. And these are people like that I've known for years. And they're still friends with my kids, supposedly. Mm-hmm. And they just treated them like they weren't there. And my kids didn't think anything of it. You know, like, we just have to take it. Just be like, just take it. And people say that. Why doesn't Nation just go away quietly? Just go quietly. Like, why do you have to say anything? But the reality is, the only reason I speak out against it is because my kids are still stuck in it. Mm-hmm. And because they're taking my friends and family. And they took them.
I think that they feel like they have more entitlement to your kids than you do.
For sure they do.
Because they feel like that is for sure the sense that I get.
Well, because it's the reality.
They feel like they're going to save his kids. So we're going to keep them and we're going to save them.
It's their eternal future.
Yeah.
Because I'm just going to live this life now. Mm-hmm. They're going to live a whole forever.
Before he was disfellowshipped, Nash owned a home building company with his father and his brothers. In 2011, Nash came to work to find that his brother Jared had committed suicide. He had hung himself in the job shack.
Do you think Jared, when he committed suicide, did he go away believing in Jehovah still? Like, do you think he believed that he would be resurrected, or he was just in so much pain it didn't even...
I don't know. I printed off his letter, actually.
Oh.
Yeah, and yeah, just underneath there. He says to his kids, he says, "Stand behind your mother. Support her decisions to make your family better. Most important, love the one who created you, Jehovah. Do not allow your mind to be filled with the filth and badness of this sick world. You'll never forgive yourself if you do. You need the truth more than you know. Great things will become of all of you. You will see the new world. You might think what I did was weak, and you were right. What I did was horrible, but I know you will get through. so I ask you to forget me. Do not hold on to anything that reminds you of me. Look to the future for your strength, to your loving Heavenly Father. Pray to Him as I should have. Build a strong bond with Him, and your energy and inner soul be pure and strong, able to get through anything, especially this. The pains that I felt physically every day are far easier to deal with than the pains I feel in my heart. Every time we go to the meetings and the kids ask why I don't comment or go on service, I know you feel the same pain in your heart, so let it go. Let the pain go with me. Progress spiritually. Don't allow others to get in your way. Allow them to help you, but be firm in your mind and heart that love for your Creator is most important, and you will succeed. Thank Jehovah every day for your precious life He has given you. I have not shown that appreciation. I have gone too far. My heart is now black and must pass on. While I fade away, you become better. You are free. No longer will you worry or wonder about me. The life Jehovah has given me I have abused. I am not worthy of it, and I am not prepared to drag you down with me. This is not your fault. You're the only and best thing that's ever happened to me. I do this for you. Free yourselves of me. Forget me. I love you. So, like for me, I don't know. It's weird because when I read that originally, it never hit me the same way as it does now. Like how much he felt like it was still the truth. Like he felt that he was done. And that's why I think there's so many people that are in such dire straits that were raised witnesses or still are, because there's no worse feeling than thinking I can't do this, but there's nothing else. Because I know when I was done and I was leaving and it was over, I still thought they were right. I still thought there's no way in hell I'm going to make it. Like I'm going to make this choice because this is best for me, and I know this is better, but I'm dead. And that's what he went out thinking, that there's no point in being here because I'm just hurting everybody I'm here with. And I'm going to bring them down with me, because especially when you're the dad, you're the head of the house, and so your kids, like if Armageddon came, like what they believe is if Armageddon came tomorrow and I was with my ex-wife and my kids and I wasn't doing anything, my kids would die with me. That's just because none of them are baptized, and so that's how he felt.
Well, that line where he says he feels like he's let Jehovah down, like what was he talking about there?
Those feelings of guilt and shame that he had all the time over not being good enough, that stemmed from this religion, because those are our beliefs. Like, you're never good enough. Like, you're always falling short. And they're like, well, if you just try, eventually paradise will come and it'll all be fixed. It's like, but that's not good enough, because you never work on yourself now. You never figure out how to feel good enough as a dad, as a husband, and as a person for yourself. And so he just had this turmoil all the time.
Everyone I've interviewed, their families are completely broken. Completely. It's sad seeing that from the outside, because I think without the interference of the Jehovah's Witnesses, I think all these families would still be intact.
It's so inhumane and unnatural to want to cut your family off, to just think that this is the only way, this is the best thing, because they honestly think that they're doing the best thing for me and for themselves. And I know they aren't bad people. I love my family to death, and I know that in no way are they trying to hurt me. That's not their plan. They honestly think that they're doing what's right. And they're just like, well, maybe one day he'll wake up and come back. And that's insane to think, because finally being out, now I'm finally awake. Like, I finally know what's going on, and I don't know. Like, that's the thing. I don't have all the answers anymore. Whereas before, I thought I had all the answers. I knew it all. I knew what was going to happen when I died. I knew what happened to everybody else when they died. I knew where we were all going. I knew who was going to heaven and who was going to be on earth. And it was good, and everything was figured out. And so to be in a spot where you don't know, it's weird. Like, the whole world is different to me. And I've had people say to me, like, don't be so hopeless. Like, you can't be hopeless like that. But I'm not hopeless anymore. Like, in reality, I finally actually have some hope in life, because I can control right now. I feel responsible for myself right now, for what I do, how I treat people. and for the rest of my life, the rest of the life that I know of anyway. And if there's something after this life, then that's great. I hope I get there, but I don't know. And I know for certain that having, a shaved face and wearing a suit on Sunday, that's not going to get me there. Like that, none of that stuff matters. And it's like you were so just just all encompassed with that. You're just surrounded by this crazy little nitpicking of your life, the things you said, the things you did, the things you thought, and that took over everything. And it's like it kept you so busy that just life is passing you by.
I was with Mike, who had been a Jehovah's Witness for almost 40 years and is currently an inactive member. In his early 20s, Mike found himself in a difficult marriage. Through the entirety of their relationship, Mike and his wife never had intercourse. His marriage had left him feeling trapped and suicidal.
In a marriage, the only thing that really provides grounds for, a divorce and then marrying somebody else is basically if somebody dies or if one spouse is unfaithful, right, and has sex with somebody else. We were fighting quite a bit of the time. I was miserable all the time. I just got to the point where I just couldn't deal. I just kept packing all of this stuff down. I, started looking at porn and was like doing that all the time and then feeling super guilty about that because that was like a big, no-no. And so that just ate away at me. And I mean, that, I went probably like from being, I'd consider a relatively kind of happy guy, before getting married to by the end of it, like, I thought, the only way really out of this marriage was somebody had to die, right? So then it turned to like self-murder, like how can I kill myself, right? That led to eventually an attempt, right?
It's so interesting, like you feel so trapped in this marriage, right? And the only way you see out is that you think, okay, I'm just going to attempt suicide. I'm just going to attempt to kill myself, assuming that you're going to go to paradise after, right? Can you take me back to that day of when you thought, okay, this is the day I'm going to attempt suicide? Like what was going through your mind?
Yeah, I mean, my direct memories are pretty hazy because at that point you're in kind of a messed up place. But I do remember just thinking this was the most logical thing to do. This just made the most sense. This had the best possible outcome for everybody, right? Was in this scenario. That's how I kind of rationalized it or justified it in my mind. I had access to mostly like codeine, right? Was the big one. So I had, a fair substantial supply of that and thought if I could mix that with basically any other kind of drugs that I might have, cold medication, all that, I just swallowed basically like, a glass full of pills, I think, and just hoped that, I wouldn't wake up, from this. I had some sleeping pills in there too. But I did. I mean, I woke up probably like 20 hours later, felt horribly sick. Like I should have gone to a hospital. I should have gone, had a like a psych assessment and all that stuff, but I didn't. And I just kind of played it off as I had a flu for like a couple weeks. And it was kind of after that, then realizing like, listen, like I'm pretty sure, if you're at the point where you're going to kill yourself, God should understand if that isn't working and you can separate. And that's kind of how I justified it, right? Like if this had made me so miserable that this wasn't going to work out, even though this isn't really allowed and it should probably, stick in the marriage, I think God would be understanding in this case. I'd finally just worked up the courage to just say, no, we've got to end this. But it wasn't maybe like 2 hours after she had left. Then I had a knock on the door and it's a couple elders that are like, want to get to the bottom of this and tell me, you need to go and get your wife and, fit this all together. And I said, listen, I mean, I got to the point here, I was going to kill myself. I am not getting back together with her. This just isn't going to work for me. And they're like, oh, that's just a cop-out, right? Like, and just completely like dismissed it and blew it away. There was nothing like, oh, maybe you need some help, right? Maybe you need to go see a psychiatrist, a therapist or something. There was none of that, right? And there was no meaningful help that they gave to really address, you know, what those issues were. And so eventually they left. I went away and saw my parents for a couple of days and then came back. And then it was just this continuous onslaught of meetings with elders trying to get, you know, us to get back together and try to get to the bottom of things. And that went on for a couple of months. And, you know, it was through that whole time then that I started to develop a much closer relationship with the person who then became my wife eventually again. And so that relationship kind of started to develop. And so then when all of this stuff had blown up and I was now, you know, separated, but just feeling completely alone, you know, reached out more closely. We, you know, started seeing each other on the down low, you know, like away from anybody's prying eyes. So we kind of had this secret relationship going on for a while. And it got a little bit intimate. Like we still didn't have, you know, sex, but we were, you know, doing some other things. That made my wife then, well, became my wife, but I guess girlfriend then, very, feeling very guilty. She needed to go and confess to the elders. So I had to go and confess to the elders. And then that started this whole judicial process of, okay, now you've really broken the rules here. This is stuff that you can't do. So we need to have this judicial committee where they determine, are you sufficiently repentant so that we don't have to disfellowship you, or, you know, are you doing what you don't need to? They initially decided that I was repentant enough. And then when my first wife found out about that, she caused a big sting, said some stuff that I think was mostly made up, got them to reconsider. And so then they decided to disfellowship me. So I had this kind of up and down roller coaster that went on for a couple of months.
What kind of questions did they ask you at the judicial meeting?
You know, were you touching each other's genitals? Were you like stroking each other? How much were you doing it? How long were you doing it? You know, how many times did you do it? You know, on what days were you doing it? What times? And what setting was that happening? You know, did you orgasm? Like all these super explicit details. It's like they wanted a play-by-play, right, of everything that you did. And at the time, I just gave them all this info, right? I was just like, oh yeah, okay, that was this, and this. And I look back now and it's like, this is none of your business, right? Like this is so invasive. This is crossing so many boundaries.
After you got disfellowshipped, you obviously went back. Was a big reason the fear of just losing all your community and your social bonds with friends and family?
Yeah, it became a harsh reality. And because, you know, especially all my family, you know, were Jehovah's Witnesses, it just felt like I have to get back in, right? Because I can't not have this ability to have relationships with all my family. My brother-in-law, who was a ministerial servant, was removed because they didn't immediately kick me out of their house when I was disfellowshipped. So there were consequences for the people that I think kept contact. And that's, you know, a good way to keep those people in line with all the rules as well and enforce this is, well, if you're going to talk, like you can be disfellowshipped for having a relationship, like even a family relationship with somebody who's disfellowshipped. So
after being reinstated as a Jehovah's Witness, Mike married his girlfriend, but he had doubts about the truthfulness of the organization and used alcohol to suppress his skepticism.
You know, for me, I found, like, it may sound silly to some people, but for me, it was Noah's flood, right? I mean, as a Jehovah's Witness, you have to believe that that flood happened. And when that was just so demonstrably false, that was kind of like that was a challenge for me. It's like, well, how do I square this, right? And I was starting to come up with all these weird kind of theories on my own about how, well, maybe it's okay, you know, that the flood didn't happen, or maybe there's some other stories. You know, I was coming up with all these weird justifications and doing all these mental gymnastics to support it, but the answers were never satisfying. It was scary because the ramifications of finding out it's not true, you know, well, at that point, you're likely going to lose all your friends and family, right? So that's a pretty big, devastating thing. And so I just found ways to suppress those doubts or get rid of them. For me, like drinking was a good one because it was just like, okay, I don't want to have to worry about this. So let's drink a bit and it kind of goes away. And just tried to shut out any of that kind of stuff and just forge ahead. But, you know, eventually, like it was getting to a point where clearly, you know, drinking to solve these issues was not a healthy thing to go through. You know, I was depressed and anxious about everything. And it's like, okay, I really need to sort this out for myself. My wife and I were thinking about having a child, and I just knew at that point, even though I was still, it's like I could not raise a child as a Jehovah's Witness. I do not want them to have that experience that I went through. And I got to figure this out, right? Because I can't go any further. And so then I finally allowed myself to take in information from other sources. And it did turn out, I mean, to really deal with the depression, anxiety, drinking, and all that stuff, I had to get out. And once I did, you know, and that's only been, you know, the last couple of years, it was still rocky to get going. But like, yeah, it took getting out of that, leaving it behind, just realizing that, okay, those friends are probably gone forever. I'm not going to have the relationship with my family that I would have wanted or would expect, and just have accepted that now it's like, okay, I can move on. You know, I don't feel like everything's hopeless. There's things in life that I want to live for.
Like you're in a good place now, but probably those first, I don't know, year, couple of months, would you say you felt alone, like very lonely?
Yeah, I felt like completely alone. I had this experience which made it very surreal for me. So I joined a jiu-jitsu club, and I've been doing that now for a couple of years. And, you know, you get in and you need to sign like a form, right? And you need to put an emergency contact, right? And it was at that point, I have nobody, right? There's nobody that I could put on that column to call, right? And so I think it's still the case. I should update it. My emergency contact was 911, right?
The organization had so many strict rules, and you found them so difficult to follow, just not being able to read other material or the way you dress, all that stuff. But there are 8 million Jehovah's Witnesses in the world, right? Supposedly. Mm-hmm. So most of them, I guess, are fine with those strict rules.
When you really understand to the level that Jehovah's Witnesses are micromanaged in every aspect of their life and how controlled they are, even though they'll say that they're not and they have all their personal freedoms, you don't. Like, you are so controlled and so micromanaged. It literally is like, you know, they talk so much about, oh, the new system coming in paradise. Like it's actually here, right? You're just trapped in purgatory right now. You're trapped in hell. Get out of there and you can actually have, you know, some joy and happiness, right? And get that out of your life before it's too late. The saddest part is all these people are putting off having a happy life for some future paradise to come.